Unfortunately, it looks like the situation in Minneapolis is really getting out of hand. Um, it just seems to be another example of a source problem that causes a lot of sincere anger, but then a lot of people are taking advantage of that anger to basically go on a rampage. Um, so the latest developments is, as I understand it, the officer that killed George Floyd, Derek Chauvin, has been arrested, and hopefully he will face justice. I think he should get a lengthy custodial sentence. Um, so let me just be absolutely clear about that. I am not one of those people who seek to make excuses for the police. You do get some right-wing Americans who every single time will say, "Oh, the guy was resisting arrest," or they'll always try to find some angle to defend police brutality. To those people, I say you're just wrong, and you look foolish when you make that argument. But you also look like you are defending the indefensible, really. But there is another side of this, which is those who think that it is somehow justified that people can express anger by looting, by burning down businesses. Now, the irony about this is, where is this wanton destruction being aimed at? Yeah, they did attack a police station, but they've also attacked people's homes. This is a cruel irony. There was apparently a black firefighter, I understood he was retired, and his home was burned down. He built up savings to get the place, and he's black, and his home was burned down. Um, in another ugly incident, some young black women started harassing this older white woman in a wheelchair as others were looting a store. Now, how does harassing an older woman in a wheelchair do anything to stand against police brutality? And the thing is, they'll say, "Oh, we've tried the peaceful approach, it doesn't work." Okay, but I don't know how anyone could try to justify that sort of looting. And I don't want to say two wrongs don't make a right. That's a bit of a cliche, but the left really need to also consider that this sort of behaviour is doing nothing for George Floyd or his family. And I'm saying the left because inescapable that this is a left-right issue. If the right are too quick to defend police brutality, the left are too quick to defend criminal behaviour. And I'm not talking about George Floyd, he was an innocent man, and it's disgusting what happened to him. But it looks like in this case, the police did act a bit quicker than usual. Whilst I was somewhat skeptical of the fact that the officers were just fired instead of being arrested initially, they did respond quicker than other police forces in similar situations. Um, but it's a situation that's really getting out of hand. Actor Michael Rappaport, who I don't really know that well, I actually know him from Friends, where he played quite a cocky NYPD police officer, ironically. Um, he made a video on this, and it was just nonsense. What he was saying was, if you're offended by the looting, and this is verbatim, fuck you. He was basically saying that people shouldn't be complaining about the looting. They should only be angry about the death of George Floyd. Now, that's nonsensical thinking. Has it occurred to Rappaport that people could be angry with both? I don't understand what logic is trying to make. Like, if you criticize the looting, then you support the killing of George Floyd? No, it's a stupid logic, and it's typical of a lot of people in. Like I said, I don't know Michael Rappaport that well, but I assume based on that video, he is of the kind of liberal Hollywood school of thought. Um, and it's just he's virtue signaling. Maybe he's sincere, I don't know, but he's wrong because I mean, should someone who's had their home burnt not be angry, not be bothered by this? And unfortunately, it's a very toxic situation because if the police then go in and arrest the rioters, That's just going to inflame the tensions even more. I think they should arrest them. I think there's ground to arrest them. Unlike George Floyd, they're not innocent. They're burning people's property. They're looting stores. Now, I don't understand how looting a store, does anything in the fight against police brutality. It's just nonsensical. And George Floyd's family has called for calm. So why don't they respect George Floyd's family? Um, I just think these sort of incidents really exemplify how toxic the culture wars are in America. Both sides, I can find ground to criticize both sides. Like I say, there's too many on the right that have this knee-jerk tendency to make excuses for the police. The police union immediately said let's not jump to conclusions. And there are double standards to be seen. For example, the fact that right-wing Trump supporters can storm the state capital of Michigan brandishing firearms are not arrested, but others are. Apparently, a CNN crew was arrested in Minneapolis for covering the event. So the police need to be very, very careful how they deal with this because it could only make things worse. I mean, arresting journalists is just ridiculous. Um, but they're now going to be feeling like, because there's a lot of anger against them, understandably so, they're going to be now on the defensive, thinking they'll be attacked. It's just a very toxic situation. But there's several things that are not helping. One of them is these opportunistic criminals who think that they can use the death of George Floyd to justify this behavior. It's nonsensical. I just don't get what logic there is there. It's very similar to what happened in 2011 across England when we had urban riots. Now, again, that was initiated by the death of a black man in police custody, except unlike George Floyd, he was actually a criminal. He had a lengthy record. I mean, I say unlike George Floyd, as far as I know, George Floyd didn't have a criminal record. He even made a video against youth crime. By all accounts, he was a decent man. Now, the character involved in the London riots, Michael Duggan, was an armed criminal. That was a very different situation. And I think there's too many in the sort of counter movement against the police that just assume that one size fits all. So they themselves won't differentiate between an unarmed black man and an armed black man. Um, but about the racial component, an aspect of all of this that's been overlooked and probably deserves more attention is the officer who kind of kept watch while Derek Chauvin was doing this. Derek Chauvin, I'm not sure how his name's pronounced. The officer who kept watch is an Asian American by the name of Tu Tao. I assume he's of Vietnamese descent. I'm just guessing, but he's an Asian American, and he's a cop, and he was absolutely complicit in the death of George Floyd. So those who are saying it was a white cop that killed a black man, a white cop aided by an Asian cop. So should we talk about Asian privilege? I think when you start looking a bit deeper, the racial dynamic is not as clear cut as people think. If you listen to Black Lives Matter, it's just a case of black people are killed by the police and it's always white cops, and it never happens to white people. Well, actually, white people are killed by the police as well. It's just that if a white officer kills a white suspect, that's not news. So I do think the media has a responsibility to show the whole picture. Certainly reports incidents where unarmed black men die. I'm fine with that. But also report incidents where you get brutality from black cops or Asian cops or Hispanic cops. I think the problem is more a police public problem rather than a racial one. And I know that's a controversial thing to say, but that's my gut feeling. So it's just really unfortunate what's going on there. I feel very sorry for people who've had their businesses wrecked, especially in the midst of coronavirus when they're already being hit hard. So Michael Rappaport, you're an idiot for just dismissing the looting as if it's nothing. You're a wealthy actor. You don't have to rebuild your house. that's been burnt down. So people just need to use their heads with this. I'm not saying there shouldn't be anger. I think it would be very strange if there wasn't anger, actually. And I'm not even going to criticize them attacking the police station. That's a target. I'm not saying they should, but it's more understandable than attacking someone's home or looting. So it's really, really unfortunate. If the situation isn't really, if all sides don't calm down, then I don't know, it's going to get worse. I think this is more serious than the Ferguson unrest because already one man's died in the unrest, as far as I know. I think the damage is more extensive. This may actually end up as the worst instance of unrest related to police brutality since the Los Angeles riots. And I don't want to exaggerate. It may not, it probably won't get that bad. I mean, we'll have to remember some over 50 people died. That was an unprecedented level of violence in modern times. The LA riots were the worst since the 1960s. So I don't think it'll get that bad, but it's pretty serious. And when you get actors like Michael Rappaport just fanning the flames, I mean, he's basically saying, go out and loot. He may as well because he's downplaying it. Um, so let me know your thoughts. If you live in Minneapolis, how are you feeling? Are you concerned for your city? What's the situation on the ground? Is the rioting still going on? I haven't watched the news today, so I've just been going by online sources. I just hope it all calms down soon. I do think that there needs to be justice for George Floyd. I think this officer must get a custodial sentence. I think the evidence is clear. I don't think there's any angle where he can rationally say that his life was threatened. You know, George Floyd was unarmed, he was on the ground, he was struggling to breathe. Witnesses were urging the officer to let him up to breathe. It was, and Chauvin was just sitting there like he didn't care. So clearly he is a thug and he needs to face justice for what he's done. I also think Officer Tal needs to face justice as being an accomplice because he kept guard. Um, it's just very sad to see this happening, and it just seems to be history once again repeats itself in the United States. But those who are condoning the rioting by saying, oh, well, black people have suffered for long enough, it's black businesses they're destroying. Well, including black businesses, I imagine they're mixed. Minneapolis is a pretty diverse city, so I imagine it's mixed. Um, just nonsensical. It's like in the 2011 England riots, there were too many on the left, including shamefully the Labour Party, or I should say some within the Labour Party, that tried to condone it. In the end of the day, adults are responsible for their own behaviour. You cannot take your anger at what happened to George Floyd to go out and torch someone's business. And this applies in any situation, by the way, regardless of politics. In Hong Kong, the minority of Hong Kong protesters who did turn to violence, that was sheer stupidity because all it done was played in the Chinese state media. And they've went up put up with enormous police abuse. But what people need to understand is media perception is extremely important. And if you behave like a criminal, that is going to come across. And with the Hong Kong situation, whilst I'm 110% against the CCP, um, I can see how they would use the violence. They would say the protesters are just hooligans, they're just, destroying property and stuff. They won't mention the fact that there's been a lot of police brutality in Hong Kong, and not a single officer has been held to account by Carrie Lam's government. I mean, the brutality that's been going on there is like George Floyd tenfold. Very serious situation. So I just think that there's too many excuses made for violent protesters. People are responsible for their own behaviour. And targeting the police is one thing, but targeting businesses just makes no sense. No sense at all.